So, hello, I'm Alex.
I'm Sergii.
We are from Redhat, and today we'll talk about something you love. No, we won't talk about your spouses. And we won't talk about your kids. We will talk about your IDE. Developers are famous for spending a lot of hours on configuring their environments. And this is what makes us productive, right? Who does spend just a second to check Git Status? I have an alias, just a letter S, to check branch status. Does anybody have it? Okay. Sergei, what do you have for Git Status?
I have Git ST.
But it's too long to write it down. Okay, I'm joking, but why do we change our environment? Why we reconfigure it all the time? Because changing our IDE makes us read and edit code faster. It allows us to do repetitive tasks more quickly, and it provides us information right when we need it, without distraction on the browser where Twitter runs. How do we change our IDE? Obviously, the first one is theme. Isn't this dark Eclipse theme better than the regular one? I know that, yeah, you might have different taste. But changing theme won't help you when you have a nasty bug on your production. And it won't help you to deal with a complex framework. It won't help you to hot reload your code in your application server. What helps here are plugins. And we will talk about customization, about plugins, about everything of extensibility in Che 7. So, what is Che? Does anybody know what is Che? Okay, so I'll talk what is Che because there are some person who doesn't know it. Okay, Che is a cloud-native IDE. It's a platform where hundreds or thousands of users can run their workspaces at the same time in the cloud. The only thing is needed is a browser. So you can access your IDE in your browser, and you will be able to use huge amount of RAM, CPU, network, because it's a cloud, everything in a Docker image, and you need to pull those Docker images from Amazon or Azure everywhere, and they are really heavy. So Che orchestrates containers, and everything in Che runs in containers. What problems does Che solve? There's no more, it works on my laptop, but it doesn't work on production. Because you actually, with Che, you actually can run production and put your development tools on top of your production. If it's not really possible because of some constraints, you can make the workspace as close to production as possible, and you cannot achieve that on your laptop most of the time. Che provides isolation of workspaces, so I can have different projects with different dependencies in different workspaces. They would not overlap, and they can run at the same time if I have enough resources in the cloud. I can work on. It doesn't make sense, but I would be able to work on different projects at the same time, and each IDE in those workspaces would be configured for this particular project. Build command, test command, debug, everything. We can think how it can help open source projects. When I want to contribute to an open source project, I don't want to configure for half a day or for 2 days environment, and I don't want to remove my own dependencies in favor of conflicting dependencies of that open source project. With Che, you can have a link that opens IDE in your browser with all the dependencies your project needs. So maintainer can provide this configuration and share it with users in readme.md as a link, as a button. When user clicks, we open IDE. There is everything pre-configured by maintainers, like all the commands, all the dependencies, everything. And user can start contributing in the first minute instead of on the second day. Yeah, this looks really cool, I think, and there is just one problem. This is Che 6, and it's not customizable. This is the cloud solution, and we distributed our IDE to all the users. And the problem is that you can change theme, but it is not what our users want to do, just the theme without plugins. They want to change plugins. And it's not really possible to change plugins for each user separately. When we change plugins, we change it for everyone in the Che installation. So in Che 7, we work on that, and it's really customizable. Today we will talk about different techniques of customizing Che, and you might be able to watch previous talks and workshop about writing plugins and adding plugins to Che 7, and today we will talk about something else, about something more advanced. So in Che 7 we changed our IDE. This is another Eclipse project, Eclipse Theia. It's written in TypeScript, and it's heavily inspired by VS Code. You can use this in Che 7 instead of the old GWT IDE that you've seen on the previous slide. In Theia, we added runtime plugins, what was the pain point for the previous IDE. So each user can add his own plugins to the configuration of his workspace and run Python project with Python plugins, Node.js with Node.js plugins, or Go with Go plugins and toolings needed for this particular project. In Theia, we also added an ability to run remote plugins. A remote plugin really helpful when dependency of your plugin are not in the IDE container. And since this is container world, we do not want to install anything at runtime. This is not possible on most of secure clouds where sudo is not available. So we can run your plugin in a sidecar container, and this sidecar container would have all the dependencies you need for your plugin. Then Theia would connect to that remote container, that remote plugin, and communicate with it like it would communicate with the local one. It would not even recognize it. And we also added an ability to run plugins that have both sides, like a sidecar service running in a sidecar container and one part running in a Theia IDE, like a plugin, like a local plugin for Theia. And switch the slide. And we also working on adding compatibility with the VS Code plugin, because Theia has APIs compatible with VS Code, and we are working on making those APIs even more compatible. We already are able to run VS Code plugins from VS Code Marketplace in Che Theia. Not everything works, but we are working on achieving great compatibility. So I think this is a good time to go to advanced techniques.
Yeah, so as Alex mentioned, in Che 7 we added and we changed our IDE to Theia, but actually we did something more than just swapping IDE. We added an ability to add new IDEs, and everything that you need to do it is to have Docker image with your web-based IDE, and provide some more configurations files which describes your Docker image, like ports you need to be exposed, memory limit, and so on. And then, after publishing it to plugin registry, users will be able to use this IDE for their workspaces, just configuring workspace. So, and it's actually what we did with Theia and GWT IDE. We didn't just change IDE, but we added an ability for user to choose which one he wants. So, and let me demonstrate how it works. Here we have Eclipse Che. I'm creating a workspace. It will be Che 7 workspace. I'm creating it from Che 7 preview stack. And here I'm able to choose which IDE I want to run now. So it's pretty old. I'm just starting my workspace. And GWT based IDE is running in a sidecar container in my workspace. So we need to wait just a few seconds more, and now GWT is ready to use. We can import projects, use terminal, and what we need for development. And then if we want to change our IDE, we just need to go to our workspace, stop it, and reconfigure with new IDE. So, and now I'm choosing Theia instead of GWT, just saving configuration and restarting my workspace. And now Theia IDE is running in a sidecar container instead of GWT based. And now we can see that new IDE is available in the same workspace to work with the same projects. Yeah. But also we added an ability to publish any web-based IDE, and I have an example for this case. Like a professor in university wants data analyst students to analyze some predefined data set and to check what did they found, how they did so, and he asks students to do it in Jupyter Notebook. Does anybody know what it is? So it's an open source web application that allows to create documents and share them. And this document may include live code, data visualization, and styled text. So, and what we need to do to add our IDE, we need to start with our Docker image, and how I have prepared one. It's not something prepared for Eclipse Che, it's just a standalone application, and I'm running it on my local machine just to show that it is standalone application, and it does not really depend on Eclipse Che. So I'm running my S2I Jupyter image. Yeah, and it started. Let's try to use it from my local machine in browser. Sorry. Yeah. So it's here. We can use create files, use this terminal, or so. Since we check that we have Docker container ready to use, we should let Eclipse Che know about that, and we need to add some configurations file to Che plugin registry. It's simple Git repository that contains all information about your IDEs and plugins. So I'm creating here needed folders, and use Jupyter identifier and version as file folders names. And now I should create a few files there. So I'm generating some templates. So first file is meta.yaml file. It contains quite common information about your IDE. So let's fill gaps. Is it better? So we are adding Che editor, but not Che plugin. So we type name here, identifier, title, and description. Let it be the same. Icon will leave as empty value, and URL should point to your IDE configuration, and it's actually tar.gz archive that contains Che plugin YAML configuration, and also it may contains some binary if needed. So I'm leaving it as empty value for now, and it will be filled after publishing. So, and another more advanced file of our IDE configuration, it's Che plugin YAML. We can see endpoints here, and it represents server, which is accessible for user or maybe useful only internally in Workspace. So it's Jupyter, it's public server which is accessible for users. It is support which is listened by our server, and our application is run on HTTP protocol. And we are adding IDE but not language server. Here we should fill some information about our containers. Our image that I used locally. Yeah, and environment variables may be used to configure your IDE, and I'm going to specify which project directory Jupyter should use. So it's Jupyter notebook dir. We are going to put our projects in /projects folder, and we are specifying for Che where projects are located. We want it to be mounted into /projects, and which port should be exposed for our application. The last thing is memory limit. So, and it's pretty all from IDE developer perspective. Everything that we need is just publish it to plugin registry. In normal flow, it's creating a new pull request in Che plugin registry, merging it, updating, rebuilding Docker image with Che plugin registry, and updating Che plugin registry application. But now I'm using simple script that will do it faster. So I'm specifying my meta file and Che plugin configuration. So I'm publishing my IDE, and that's all. Now we should be able to go to our Eclipse Che, and we should be able to choose Jupyter as IDE. So, and it's here. We are enabling it. We are just enabling it. We are going to import the Jupyter notebook project, which is the just sample notebook. So yeah, it's here. I'm adding Git repository as my project. So let's create Workspace and check what is there. So it's starting, and now our Jupyter project, Jupyter notebook is run as sidecar container, and it's ready to use. But unfortunately, project is not imported automatically. It because Eclipse Che does not really manage your projects, but just store information about them, and IDE is supposed to import it for itself. And Jupyter notebook should be patched maybe with some plugin and should import projects. So I'm going to go to use terminal to manually clone my project. So something wrong with Git. I'm going to work around this issue. So I'm adding a remote with my repository. And I'm fetching edit repository. So, and I want to demonstrate what is Jupyter notebook and how it works in Eclipse Che. So now we can see here our project, and we can open our notebook file, run our page, our live code, and see that we can see some visualization, the input, our predefined data set, and graphics. So yeah, but what if you don't want to make your IDE public, like you want use it for yourself privately, or like you are still developing it and you want just to check how it works? Then you have an ability to specify your meta YAML file as an URL in project configuration. We don't have UI on our dashboard, but we are going to implement this. So now we should do it by adding our workspace JSON, and I'm going to use URL of meta YAML, which is published to Che plugin registry, but actually it might be located anywhere, like your Git or GitHub repository. So I'm copying it. Actually, I need to modify it a bit, but we are going to process just the original URL. So I'm just saving my workspace configuration, starting it, and okay, thank you. So I need to fix URL. It is here and extra space for there. So I'm saving it and trying to start it again. So we can see that workspace is starting and Jupyter notebook is starting is in a sidecar container as previously, but actually we configure it by specifying directly URL to our meta information file without publishing to plugin registry. Yeah, and you also may want to share your custom IDE with other users, just like sharing a link, and it will be a factory link. We can create a factory from our workspace, and that's all. We can share this pretty simple URL, and after opening it, So it's supposed to fail, I think. Yeah. After opening it, I have a limitation that I can have only one Orion workspace, but I stopped previous one, so I can create a new workspace with custom editor, and it is not published anywhere. Like it is stored in your GitHub repository, and it's a really convenient way to share your environment with your customized IDE with anyone. Yeah. So, and what we saw that we can add any web-based IDE. We can use it privately for us, or we can publish it into Che plugin registry and make it available for everyone.
This is the end of the demo, and now we'll talk a bit more about what we can do, what else we can do with that. So we can create new IDEs and add and share it with other users. It can be your custom IDE, but we can also change existing IDEs like Theia. You can have your Theia compile it with your set of extensions, with your theme, with your changes in source code. Since this is the open source project, you can fork it, you can change it as you want, and you can publish it as a custom IDE and embed it into some project, into some product, and share it with users. There is a concept in Theia that is called extension. This is something like a plugin, but more powerful. It is compiled into the assembly of Theia, and it can change basically anything in Theia, and it can break anything in Theia too. So we are the regular way for us to customizing plugin set is regular plugins that are working over the JSON RPC API. But if you want to customize it really heavily, you can use extensions for that and share it with users. You can create another product based on this custom IDE, and you can run it basically on any Che 7 instance. You don't have to have your own dedicated Che 7 instance for that. By the way, Che 7 is not yet released, but you can try it, because Che 7 workspace can live alongside with the Che 6 workspaces on any decent Che 6 version of on any decent installation of Che 6. So since we can change the IDE and customize some IDEs, we also added an ability to customize plugin delivery process. We call it plugin brokering. Some IDEs have another ways to where we should put plugin files, how we should initialize them, what environment variables we need for plugins. So you can just add your plugin brokering implementation into Che, and later we will add an ability to publish it in the same plugin registry. So your plugins, your IDEs would be able to use this custom plugin brokering process. So let's summarize what we were talking today. Is that in Che 7 you can heavily customize your IDE, and new IDE in Che 7 is Theia, that you can swap IDE, you can publish new IDE, you can rebuild and customize existing web IDEs and use it in Che, in any Che vanilla instance, without needing to host an instance especially for you, for your custom version of IDE. I think that's all. Can you swap to? Yeah. We have more talks today, and you can. Yeah. Can you stop? So you can reach us on GitHub, issues, on mailing list in Eclipse. You can reach us on Mattermost of Eclipse, and you can try Che 6 and Che 7 workspaces on a Che instance running on OpenShift IO by Redhat. And yeah, just please evaluate this talk. Yeah, we have 2 more talks about Che. We had more talks in the previous days and workshops about plugin writing and plugin delivering process. So you can watch it in recordings. You will be able to watch it later, I suppose. But those two talks left for today. If you have any questions, please ask. We have still some minutes. Does anybody have any questions?
So even if I use my own Theia image as IDE, so I'll be able to use the benefit of logging into other containers, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You just swap container with the IDE, and you can still use, even with custom version, you can still use default plugin brokering process, but you can customize it. Like Docker and Kubernetes like to say, the batteries are included but swappable. Yeah.
How does the IDE has access to the workspace? Is it the same file system, or how if I change the IDE from A to B, and how is the communication to the workspace where my source files and projects are?
So basically, this is a web application. The IDE is a web application. It runs server side, but you can load the front end from this server from inside that workspace. So you load your IDE front end in your browser, and it communicates directly with the backends. And backends obviously have access to the file system there.
Oh, the sidecar where the IDE runs has access to the workspace.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And for example, for sidecar that provides access for command execution and terminal into every container in your workspace, we use access to Kubernetes or OpenShift API. Like this sidecar can, with your token, can access OpenShift or Kubernetes API to execute commands in other containers. So we don't have to change those containers to provide you terminal access. Thank you.
Thank you.